This is about deconstruction, and I told you deconstruction is roughly defined as applied post-structuralism. When you bring this, we have already described what a post-structuralist critic does. Okay, so that this deconstruction, once post-structuralist premises or tenets are taken into or applied into a text, that itself is called deconstruction. So what is it? It is often referred to as reading against the grain. That is grain. What do you mean by grain? Reading against the grain of a text. That is, grain of a text means what is already, see, when you talk about a text or the novel or short story and the hero or heroine, that concept itself is the grain, or everything else revolves around this major figures, major characters, or the main events in their lives. So that is the grain. And once you substitute or once you come up with a new reading telling that this hero is no longer worthy enough to be called a hero. Okay, this classroom silence, I noted down that I gave you that example right now. That is, okay, classroom silence, till date it was taken as something, pin drop silence, classroom decorum, or very enthusiastic, very the much desirable control of the class on the part of the teacher. But now there is another new reading. That is, it is almost all people are sleeping there, maybe including the teacher. So that silence occurs. Entirely different post-structuralist or deconstructive reading on the notion of classroom silence. So this is the way you read the text against itself. This is just an incident or just a very basic example. So there is this deconstructive reading has the potential or the capability to change the entire notion, entire idea of a text. Just think about the hero getting getting revealed as unworthy as well as very villainous or a chauvinist, male chauvinist or patriarchal oppressor. Just see the way the text, the whole text and its basic understanding becomes something new and different, and as well as something entirely the opposite of what we have been availed with till date. Okay, so that we talk about reading against the grain. That is why I wanted to ask you what the meaning of this term grain. Grain. When you have the grain, that is, when you take rice, the whole the seed we do not use. We remove the unwanted part. There is a covering over rice, and we have our own methods to differentiate that covering from the actual part that is edible part of the grain, whether it is whichever grain it is. Some grains are readily, we can use it readily, but just think about rice, how we differentiate that covering. That covering is not at all edible, you know. It is almost like it's a transparent material, but still it's harmful once it goes to our when we take it as food. So that we differentiate that rice part, that edible part from this covering. So grain is the exact edible or the crucial essence like part of it. If it is in the case of this paddy seed, that is the rice that we eat is the grain of that. So this is the grain. We have been thinking that this text or that text or any text was having or is having a grain, and no longer we can find out such a grain. Today, as per my understanding, the person, that hero, turns to villain. Okay, another person may still think that this person is worthy to be called a villain. So there is no single reading for a text. That is the first idea you have to get. The text can be read against itself. That is, the reading is like reading the text against itself. Okay, and with the purpose of knowing the text as it cannot know itself. Another main idea, the text, you are reading the text against itself, because the text is almost, it shows itself to be highly unified. If you, unless and until you delve deep into this, you read and read and read a paragraph, you concentrate on single paragraph, you go in search of the etymology of one particular word, Though you find that this text is no longer the text not just holds the traditional reading. We have entirely different reading possible. Okay, so that I gave you this term dropout to be given as an example. What do you mean by the term dropout? What is the basic idea of the term dropout? A basic meaning that you know about dropout. Usually we talk about dropout as a person who quits a course or quits a campus, college, study, quits study in between. Okay, but dropout as a term has entirely another meaning which we are not usually aware of or we are not usually familiar with. Shall I get you the meaning? It is dropout can be another meaning is a person who thinks I'm typing it here for you, who thinks, T-H-I-N, yes, thinks differently. So, and again, we have almost like an autobiographical sketch on the part of the Steve Jobs. Who is Steve Jobs? The master brain behind iPhone, Apple, that development of that software, everything is actually it's still with him. No other giants could beat him till date, right? You know, iPhone, all those facilities, and the brain head is this person, Steve Jobs, and there is a dictionary length autobiographical writing on his part in which he uses this term or the concept of dropout. He is a school dropout. Okay, and when we read out that text without knowing that there is another meaning for dropout, we feel him like, or we take that person to be just a dropout, a school dropout. But once we analyze his life now after his being successful, we can understand that this dropout, this meaning of the term, that is a person who thinks and acts and lives differently, is more suitable than taking the surface meaning or the readily available or very familiar meaning that we have with us in the case of this term dropout. Did you get the idea? So this is how we read the text against the grain. Till date, the dropout as an idea in the life of Steve Jobs, unless and until we know that such a meaning is possible, we could take only the other meaning. That is, he as a boy who dropped out of school, who quit the school and did some other works, and later he succeeded in life. But how beautiful this deconstructive reading becomes once we analyze his life, or once we view his life, which is really successful only because he was something different. He did something different, or he acted something in a different manner. So this is how deconstruction possible. So this text, actually, the text cannot know itself. Text is not really capable of knowing itself. We have to know that. We have to find out the meaning. Text shows always itself to be highly unified. But now, after the death of the author, that means you are free to analyze a text as per your knowledge, understanding, provided that substantiating your argument point is possible on your part. And it's not like a wayward way of coming up with the different meanings, different readings, and telling that, oh, teacher told about this post-structuralism deconstruction, so I wrote it as per my understanding. So you have to get me mark for this reading. Solitary Reaper, I tell that that woman is the wife of that man, that may be the reason they are divorcees, and see, is there any evidence? No. But in one way or other, you have many other readings which are in one way or other you can connect logically, but that provided that you can substantiate. Otherwise, it's almost like you are talking something insensible out of dreams. That is not the provision allotted by deconstruction. Please understand at the very beginning of the theory itself. Okay. Now, deconstructive reading uncovers the unconscious rather than conscious dimensions of the text. What do you mean by these unconscious dimensions rather than conscious? That is the point what I made. Unconscious and conscious. Conscious is all of us are conscious. when you are in a way woken up status, when you are fully conscious, you are at present we are talking. I'm not talking out of my unconscious. If you are talking or if you are crying out of after a nightmare, it is most often the cries and fears and the words you pronounce. Sometimes all those come out of your own unconscious or at least subconscious. You are not fully awakened. You are not fully conscious of what you are saying. And sometimes we forget about the dreams as well. Some people ask you, why were you crying? Why were you crying whole night? Or why did you cry all night at that time? And they tell that, oh, I forgot about the dream, because your unconscious is working there. And I will explain this term more thoroughly once I deal with the psychoanalytic criticism. Don't worry. Okay. Now this is almost like texture over textuality glosses or fails to recognize that you uncover and you come up with an entirely different reading. Okay. And the example that I wanted to get you, that is available here, that it's a very funny example. I tell you, it's a very funny example. That is the major part that we have to study here. Deconstruction. Just to see the word gust. You know the meaning of the word gust. What do you mean by gust? A person who visits our home with a very positive sense, positive note. We have the sense of welcoming the guest always. Okay, so has the same origin, but this term gust has some original root as the word host. What do you mean by host? Host is the person who welcomes. Okay, welcome, hosting something. I'm hosting this session for you. Every Google Meet hour is hosted by the faculty. That is, we host and you come. That is why we admit you. We are welcoming you to the session. So this is what is happening in hosting. Okay. So host is in turn comes from Latin word hostis. Let me type it for you. First term we have to discuss is gust. G-O-E-S-T, gust. You know the meaning. Then the next term is host. Again, as per our surface level understanding, host also is a term which is in one way or other positive. Only if you are really happy about welcoming the person, you give them invitation and you welcome them, right? So in that regard, host also, as far as our surface level, please note down, our surface level understanding, host also is a term which is somewhere positive. But from where does this host come? It is from the Latin word, please note down, Latin word, L-A-T-I-N, Latin word hostis, H-O-S-T-I-S, hostis, which means enemy, E-N-E-M-Y, enemy. Oh, that is really problematic. Here begins the possibility for our deconstruction in at a very familiar situation which we all come across in between a host and a guest. Let me explain in a very funny manner. Okay, this hints, for the first time let me read it for you. This hints at the potential double aspect of a guest as either welcome or unwelcome, or as changing from one to another. This notion of hostility then is like the repressed unconscious of the text might drawn upon such disciplines as etymology in this way. Don't worry, I will explain. Okay, just wait. Okay, so what is this notion of hostility? And I will explain in our context. Okay, a guest comes to our home. Say for example, a guest comes to our home and the person brings a lot of some edibles, and also we are very happy. In the morning we are very happy welcoming the person. Okay, fine. So you give the person some very warm welcome. You get them tea, coffee, whatever as per their preference, choice. Fine. Okay, you think that this person may leave by 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock is over, 11:30 it is now. The person doesn't show any sign of leaving. Oof. So it is for lunch as well. We have to afford for lunch. Your face somewhere starts fading. Okay, lunch time. So the person is very readily on the table again with you to for the lunch. Okay, fine. Affordable anyway. The person has brought some edible, some bakery items. So fine. To give lunch also it's somewhat okay, fine, affordable. You start somewhere. You start muttering in your mind, in your conscious, in your unconscious, but still you afford. You start affording. Fine. Time being you feel like okay, lunch. After lunch, the person may leave. After lunch, it is 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Still, the person doesn't show any sign of leaving. The same guest, doesn't show the sign of leaving. You start feeling very bad. Okay, this may leave after evening cup of coffee. Let me prepare it. Even I should not wait for 5 o'clock. Let me prepare it at 3 o'clock itself, and just this be our. The person let it leave. Okay, but the person again shows the tendency to stick on and the tendency to stay there. Or the decision, the person tells that, oh, let me plan about staying here for 2 or 3 days. You will be really happy. And you will say, yeah, I'm really happy. You might have come across the scene in Vinodayatra movie where this in-laws, brother-in-laws, how this character of Mukesh, he feels like this person as a burden, but he cannot always show the irritation because he is already welcomed, or all the plannings are already done by the father-in-law and the wife. So this is how the potential double aspect of a gust to turn to something really unwelcome or changing from one to another. This gust may be really unwelcome in the very beginning itself. Just think about this COVID-19 time. Even if it is your very favorite, so for example, very favorite relative or friend, you may be having a kind of fear or worry. I don't know whether it's applicable to everyone. Still, we have this tendency to stay away from either for their own. It can be double. It can be double-sided concern. That is either because of us, they should not be having any negative. That is another different context. But here, this gust itself is a very good example. Think for example, a person who is always irritating or making life difficult comes as a guest, and in the very beginning, even if he or she brings a whole bakery, you cannot even accept, or you cannot always welcome. So this is gust as a term, but in the first hand, at the surface level, we always take it to be only positive. We get the positive sense only, but when you go in search of the etymological root of the term, you will understand that the another meanings are possible, or this is possible to have a very different meaning, or the unconscious repressed element of the word gust is hostis or enemy. It is inherently implied inside. If you note down the etymology, the origin of that word only, you can understand how entirely different a reading can be possible, at least just with one word. So think about the provision allotted by deconstruction, the exploration, the possibility you get in deconstruction when you have an entire text at hand and you have different words, different meanings you can be in search of, and you have something entirely different. Okay, now only just look at the table you get here. And with that, we will close the discussion on deconstruction. Please stay for the time being. Please don't go. It's 3:22, but still we will only wind up after finishing off. This will be over, I think, in limited time. Okay. So here, structuralists seek and post-structuralists seek. Structuralism seeks parallels or echoes. That is, they want to show the unity. They do not want to show the textual disunities always, because they love language, they love to project they are really convenient to project the language to be a very convenient and reliable medium. That is it, reliability of language they really wish to project or really wish to promote. But what does post-structuralism do? They find out contradictions or paradoxes. See, for example, the dropout as a term, the paradox of using it always has something negative. You have some entirely positive meaning of the same. And something like contradictions. Again, contradictions are something, the opposites you get in a particular context. They are in search of contradictions. Only with these they can find out some entirely different meanings. When structuralism seeks balances, it's balancing. When a teacher corrects your essay on behalf of just the linguistic or grammatical errors, it's just balancing the text. They are balancing the errors. They are not always worried about the conceptual errors in your writings. They cannot always correct. So we are balancing. So structuralism is almost like balancing. But post-structuralism, they look for shifts, break in tone, viewpoints, tense, time, person, attitude. You see the person when the hero turns to be villain as far as their deeds, which we were trying to sometimes talk. We try to shut the eyes in front of the reality. We want to worship the hero so that we feel that we say that whatever he does, it is for that sake, it is for this sake. So that error can be somewhere left out, or it is not that serious. So this tendency is there on our part. And that is what is challenged by post-structuralism. They talk about all these shifts, breaks in tone, viewpoints, tenses. Everywhere they try to find out the errors. That is almost like sometimes you might have come across some videos where errors in movies portrayals are pointed out. So you have this mistakes in Titanic. You have the title. You can go in search of this YouTube video. Mistakes in Titanic movie, major mistakes in this and that movie. So we at a very basic level we may not couldn't have gone for that. We read it as we almost always we watch these movies as the structuralist critics do. We never care about this, but these people find out these shifts and breaks and all these contradictions. And another point, structuralism, when they seek reflections or repetitions, almost like a harmonious reflections or repetitions, post-structuralism seeks conflicts, that is conflicting characters, point of views, how conflicting this stand on the part of the character is. Just try to connect these points with the examples that I gave you. Okay. And when structuralism seeks symmetry, post-structuralism tries to find out absences or omissions. Absences or omissions. When the host doesn't profess the inconvenience as such on face, still we know how omitted or it is hidden inside. The person is really uncomfortable with this person prolonged stay in at home. Okay, and then next fifth point, contrast. When structuralism, they see contrast, the other one goes for linguistic quirks. Wherever language fails, they try to find out the linguistic disunities. When structuralism seeks patterns, were highly structured and organized ways of narrative points. But the other one, they seek aporia. What do you mean by aporia? It's a very important term. Aporia is, I type it for you, impasse. Impasse, it's a difficult path to cross. That is a text, it's almost like a tangled knot, they tell. What do you mean by tangled knot? Just to think about, you have a tangled knot of twain, lengthy twain, machine twain or something. When it is tangled, when it is in one way or other, almost always, sometimes you cannot always untie that. Untying is impossible when it is in a tangled knot. So the text is almost, when it is with the deconstructive critique, they feel it like a tangled knot, and they try to untie those parts, and they get entirely different reading. Okay, and the seventh last point you see here, the effect is to show the textual unity and coherence. What is the effect of doing this? They find, structuralism, they ultimately show the textual unity and coherence. In whatever way they find out disunities or problems in a text, they try to assert that as a whole this is somewhere like this. The person itself is the hero. The person himself is the hero. They also realize that this is not the case sometimes, but they do not try to project that as it is. Okay, but here what happens with the deconstruction, they do not have any concern for showing the text to be highly unified. They tell that too. It's disunified. Text is entirely, really disunified an entity. So you begin to project, or you begin to talk about your heroes to be villains, or you try to point out their loopholes in the characters, their negative stands, negative parts, negative characteristic features of the character, all these, and you come up with an entirely different meaning. So I would like to tell in brief deconstruction, the main points you have to note down. It's almost like an applied post-structuralism, first thing. Okay, so this is something different as well. We do not have always this practical form of a theory named as such in this way, but in modern theory, post-structuralism has this form to be deconstruction, and it's again reading against the grain of the text. If a text is already in traditional form, you have a hero as such in traditional understanding, that is the grain of the text. And once you declare the person to be, or you find out the person or the hero to have a lot of loopholes or very negative characteristic features, you are reading the text against that grain, that the essence, the heroic concept of that text, and you have entirely different reading for the same. Okay, and another thing, knowing the text as it cannot know itself. It's almost like another example I tell you. This deconstruction, very beautiful an example is there. Have you come across this multiple personality disorder? Do you know that multiple personality disorder? In Manichitrathal, you know. You just take this, the character enacted by Shobana as a text. The person is very neat, very pacified, very calm and quiet once she is not Nagavali. So that is the repressed unconscious of the text, that Ganga, the character. She is perfectly normal once she is not the other one. And she doesn't know that I have another version of this kind, because she doesn't know about her. Any movies portraying the same Anyan character, Anyan, the movie Anyan in Tamil, that also portrays the same. So this is almost like finding out the uncovering that unconscious. Another person, that doctors come and tell that you are not just this one, you are multiple. And this is how we have this multiple cities of meanings in a text as well. Okay, so then only the person comes to note down that, yeah, I am I have other personality. So in the same way, we have different meanings for the same text, and it is almost like uncovering the unconscious rather than the conscious of the text. And this is the point. That is the text cannot know itself. So we have to, another person, an outsider comes and tells that this woman is having another personalities, or this man is having two other personalities. So multiple personality disorder is not something fantasy portrayal. It's an existing disorder which is again approved by the medical associations as well. Okay, you'll have to note down that. Also, this is a very good example for this deconstruction and the 2 or 3 points that I described right now. So that's all with it, and please remember the meaning. The example of gust turn into hostess or enemy, or the classroom example, classroom silence, how easily it is deconstructed. The classroom silence, pin drop silence, that traditional concept is now deconstructed to have a disunified, or in some way an entirely different notion of everyone sleeping, which is really negative as well. The classroom interrupt silence and classroom decorum has been really positive, but in one deconstructive perspective shift, you have an entirely different take on the situation. Okay, so this is how we have different meanings or readings of the text possible. Okay, so that's all. Just wait. So for the time being, this is all. Thank you so much.